I'm George Curtis. Welcome to It's Your Law. Each week it's my privilege to bring guests that teach all of us about the law. If we're listening and if we're paying attention, there's a lot to learn. How it's made, how it's enforced, how it's not enforced or enforced for some but not for others, and how we can make it better. Some of these people are judges, writers, politicians, authors, critics, victims, attorneys, people who can open our eyes just a little bit to another point of view. The guests are what make this show. I agree with some of them, not with others, and those I don't agree with often prove to be the most educational and the most interesting. Today, we're having the publisher of the Oshkosh Herald, which is an independent newspaper in a time that the news, publishing, educating, especially in an election year like this, is a learning process for all of us. This is my invitation to Karen Schneider, who is the publisher of the local Oshkosh Herald, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You were here once before, and I learned a lot. What got you into the independent newspaper?
That's actually getting to be an easier answer as we've been in business this long, and it's really about the void of local news in communities. Because the newspaper industry has changed dramatically. I mean, I started in it in 1986 at the Arizona Republic. They sent out over 600,000 newspapers, on a Sunday. When I moved back to Oshkosh, it still had a great depth on the daily paper, but with venture capitalists and all of that, and what we're seeing in the newspaper industry, what has been lost in downsizing is the local news. So when I was downsized, that's what I saw is we needed something to fill the void of local news because nobody knew what was going on in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. What was the Plan Commission doing? What was the City Council up to? There really wasn't that going on. And it was interesting because Mark Roloff, who's our city manager now and was then, when I told them that this was our plan, the one thing he said to me was, that's good. He gets anxious when he sees the media calling, right, on his caller ID. But the truth of the matter was he wasn't seeing that caller ID very much anymore. So that is part of having a healthy community is having that coverage in your city, in your town, in your village. And so that's what we brought in. And that's what was lacking. And my husband also asked me, what's your dream job? And I said, we need a local newspaper. So he said, tell me what that's going to take. I greatly underestimated the investment that it would take. But, and I think he would have pulled the plug, except he was hearing from the community, thank you.
The newspaper industry, and I suspect we could make a 2-hour show out of this, has certainly changed.
Very much.
I suppose everything's changed, and how we get our information has changed, and how reliable that information has really changed, and that's a niche you're trying to fill.
It is. I mean, for our newspaper, we do not tell you what to think. We cover the news, we cover what's happening. We don't tell you how you should think or this is going to happen if this passes or that. We're telling you what the council is doing and so forth, so you can make an educated guess that what's coming up for that. But there's so many different types of media out there, and I love it when people say, well, I read it on Facebook. Well, if it's on the internet, it must be true, and that is the one statement that is probably the most inaccurate that we'll hear for the rest of our lives, is just because it's on the internet does not mean it's accurate. And you and me as a person, we need to do our due diligence to make sure that what we're reading is accurate. So search it. Is anyone else reporting that? Look at a different newspaper or turn on a different radio station or television station and find out what else is being said about whatever you believe is true because you read it on Facebook, because there's just so much disinformation and misinformation out there. And to be a to be a educated citizen of wherever you are, you have to check more than just that one statement. And part of that too is if you read something and you don't agree with it, or it's not true, don't engage with it, because all that does is it gives it more power out there on the wide world web to reach more people. So by engaging in it and saying, you're full of it, or this isn't true, or whatever, it's adding to that algorithm and letting it reach more people on the internet. So although you think you're being a good citizen by trying to correct something, it's actually helping it reach more people who may not do that due diligence or read your comments or anything like that. So when you see something and you don't agree with it, don't engage with it. Just scroll by and leave it be, because that will shorten its reach out there in the public as well.
Well, I graduated from high school, I shouldn't admit this, way back in 1954, and went to the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and the biggest treat was to go down to the student union, where there would be over 70 newspapers, because every local community would send their local paper, and then of course you had the New York papers and the Washington papers and the other papers. What a treat for a country boy to go there and have all of those newspapers. All of the local news, besides the different points of view, the political news, the comments from the various politicians and that sort of thing. And now, gradually, over those many, many years, most of those papers have been sucked up. And now I can take the Gannett paper in Oshkosh, or get the same news when I visit my in-laws in North Carolina. It's the same Gannett stuff, some of the same articles. Or when I go to Florida to visit one of my daughters, it's another same thing. And so...
But they're a network. So you have the Gannett network, and they're sharing those stories. And I will say, their staff, Oshkosh, I believe, has one reporter for the Oshkosh Northwestern, which we also have. And we're a weekly and they're a daily. So I will say that although the company, the corporate entity itself really looks the same, the people that are in your community, they're working hard. They're still journalists. It's the people that are on the streets that are working really, really hard to do the best they can with what they've been given. And they really can't be held responsible for what the people in the gilded office is doing and those decisions. And I understand we want what we used to have, right? We want to be able to walk into our student union and see those 60, 70 newspapers. Well, usually those were readership programs, and the university helped support that. So you'd have this buy-in between the newspapers as well as the universities, helping to provide all those newspapers and that knowledge, right, to the students. And then gradually that funding was pulled away and everything, and now there's not even a readership program at universities. You can't go to the UW, Oshkosh, or Madison Student Union and find those. They're not there. But yet we want to have an educated student, and we want an educated workforce coming out, but we're not giving them the tools to be able to decipher and make those decisions and be informed on their own. So it's definitely changing times, and I have 30-something-year-old kids. My son's on Reddit. He's been on Reddit for years. That's where he's finding his information. Where I get mine from a different place. My daughter, who's 18, she's on YouTube and TikTok and getting her information. So generationally, where we're receiving that news is different, but it doesn't matter where we're receiving. What we still need to be cognizant of is that we're going to more than one author or one source. So whether it's TikTok or Reddit, you're still going to get links to different news sources that are out there. Just don't read the one. Make sure you're going to 2 or 3 of them, and if there's an issue or something going on in the world, or whether it's your city, your block, your homeowners association, whatever, make sure you're getting at least two sources that you can combine so you can verify what is probably the truth out there and what is just the smoke that they're trying to hide from you. And we've been seeing this. It's really gotten loud over the last 8 years or so. But this, with the changing political climate that we're experiencing this last week or so, it's going to even get worse. So search out those 70 different titles, right? Wherever you have to search them out, but get more information so that you're an informed constituent, and you're part of the answer, and the solution, instead of just kind of being blind and floating along. And then in 4 years or 6 months, depending whatever it is that was being voted on in things, you're like, well, I didn't know.
Well, you put your finger on something that after our first break we will discuss. I'm afraid back in 1954 there weren't very many sources of information. Now there are so many sources, and you have to be suspect about all of them. Mm-hmm. So we'll take that break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to It's Your Law. I'm George Curtis, and my guest Karen Schneider is the publisher of the Oshkosh Herald. And I advertise on the Oshkosh Herald, and she's got a business. So her business depends on advertisers paying their bill. And my business depends on people coming and asking for my services. And so we dance together, and we'll continue to dance as long as it is mutually beneficial. And I want to tell you that the young man that you have calling on me just does a great job. Best ad I've ever had, he designed, and I have it in your paper every week. But it's a business, and this is a tough business to jump into like you did. Explain that.
Well, it is. So our newspaper is delivered for free to 31,000 households, and it's free to our readers, but it's advertising supported. So that's very, very old school, right? We're going back to say that people are going to read this and engage in it, and it was tough getting it going the first couple of years. But when people start walking into retailers and grocery stores and say, we're here and we're shopping here and we've switched what we do because you're supporting the Oshkosh Herald and we love getting local news, that resonates. So it's nice to see that advertising base grow, because what that enables us to do is keep a staff that's going to be reporting. So thank you. I appreciate you and your business, because that's what enables us to cover our local community. And that's what we do. That's our specialty. We're a very, very small team. There's not a lot of, there's not anything really to cut. We're a small team, and we do a lot with little, which a lot of businesses do, right? But that's what you have to do. So our advertisers enable us to deliver this, deliver the news, and we only concentrate on Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Area School District. And the reason we do that is, you can't be everything to everyone. Now, there's a lot of news out there that we know our readers need to consume, but we also have to do what we can provide and do it well. So we can do a whole lot and do it half, or we can do what we do and do it well. Now, my husband is a huge Packer fan. He's like, why don't you cover the Green Bay Packers? They're not in the Oshkosh Area School District, honey. And it's the same philosophy when it comes to state and national races, elections as well. We cover our local races. We cover what's going on in City Hall, at the County Board of Supervisors, and the last few years, there's been a whole lot going on there, right? So we're looking to be that transparency between our local elected officials and government. And we spoke earlier about the amount of sources that are out there. And there are so many different sources, whether they're left, right, or in the center, who are covering the wider range. That's what they do. They cover the state, local race, state races. They cover the national elections. And you have a variety out there. You just have to find them. But we, as a local community weekly, don't have the resources to deliver that. So we do what we do best, and we cover the city so that when people go to the polls, they know what they're voting on locally. And what's local is really what impacts them immediately as well. Whether it's a referendum for the school district, or who's going to be sitting on city council, which, if you watch that, that has changed over the last 6-8 years as well, where right now you have a council of seven white men sitting on there. Do they reflect Oshkosh? Is that a comparison? So watching how those things go locally, that's what that's the information that we deliver to our readers, so that they're more informed of what's going on in their own backyard. And we hope that they're looking for those sources that do cover the state races or the national election, or international politics, so that they're keeping informed of that information and what's going on in outside of our boundaries. But we definitely cannot be the one all do all, and that's why we stick to our whole focus is it's local. We have another newspaper in Neenah, which is the Neenah News, and covers 54956, which is the Neenah Joint School District. What we cover in that newspaper is not the same that we do in Oshkosh. So if you pick up both newspapers and look at them side to side, will you see the same stories? Yes, there are a few that run in both newspapers, but they're both in Winnebago County. They're both governed by the same DNR. So if there's news about that in those that we have in one, it most likely will run in the other, because it's relevant to that community. Now, does the Neenah Common Council story run in the Oshkosh newspaper? Absolutely not, because it's not for them. We're giving Neenah the news that they need for their community, and we give Oshkosh the news that they need for the Oshkosh community.
So the papers are local.
Uber local. Mm-hmm.
The two of them have somewhat different coverage because it's two different communities.
Absolutely.
It's a business. Your husband's going to cut you off if you can't make a profit.
Don't let him hear that.
At any rate, you make a profit because you have advertisers like our office that think this is a good investment.
Yes.
In terms of return, also because this is a good investment as a citizen.
Yes.
Having this business vital, I think, is important to our democracy. So whether it has been profitable for my office, I can't prove one way or another. But I do know that people come in and quote my ad, which was written by your able employee, Andrew, and it just tickles the devil out of me. So
That's
it
good.
means you've got something to sell, mm-hmm. and it has value. We know that there are all kinds of other places the businessman and woman can spend their nickel. And it's competitive to survive in business. And the fact that you are surviving and thriving and apparently growing is just very, very commendable. We're going to take another break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to It's Your Law. Karen Schneider and I are talking about our local newspaper. and how important it is, the services it offers to the community, and the services it doesn't offer. We're so fortunate to have one. Most communities don't have one. They have their chain newspaper and the pablum that's spread in 50 states, and they don't have the local impact that citizens have to inhale, digest, and get rid of every day of their lives. And so we're fortunate to have this asset. It's a business, and it has to make a profit.
We're working
That's
on that.
asking for a lot. Tell me your point of view.
So, community newspapers fill a huge void, and our number one mission is to deliver local news. We're fortunate we have the advertisers there to support us. But if you look at communities where 25% plus of newspapers have closed down since 2000, so that leaves a lot of communities without any local coverage. So no one's watching the hen house, so to speak. And a lot of the areas that don't have a local newspaper also don't have great internet. So what news they are getting is from certain, it's not guaranteed. I don't want to say the word guaranteed, but there leaves a lot of voids, right? Between not having internet service, so you're not able to access different news sources, and you don't have any local coverage with a print community. And what happens is no one's watching the hen house, and so what they see happen is there's breakdowns in their communities. Their taxes typically go up because no one's saying no, don't do that. And they see more, should we say, not very ethical things that can happen within their official government walls. And Pew, the Pew Industry, it's not industry, but Pew Institute has done so much research on this that shows the gaps and the downfall of what happens in a community when they don't know what's going on. And you can go to your search bar on the internet and put in communities without a newspaper and find stories from the people who live in those areas talking about how they miss having that local newspaper because it kept them informed about the cracks that are starting to appear in their communities because there is no one sharing that information, and so things are running amok. What they would give to have a newspaper come back into their community. So you had mentioned the value of local news earlier, and when you read and listen to some of the stories that people share, because now they didn't support it at the time, or didn't have enough support, shall we say, and that newspaper closes down, you miss it when it's gone, right? So there's a song out there, I think, "You're going to miss me when I'm gone." And people in several communities throughout the United States have seen that. What happens when they don't have that local news? What the newspaper can be the backbone of your community, and if that goes away, there's a lot of really bad stuff that can happen. No one's watching it, no one's voting on it. You're just kind of left uninformed, and an uninformed community cannot be a healthy community. And our goal is to have healthy communities. That's why we deliver to every home. Over 75% of them may read it. We're not, not 100%. I'll never claim 100% pick it up and read through it. But they're looking at it. And it's interesting because when we first started, there's the internet, there's Facebook, and I wasn't seeing much engagement about the Oshkosh Herald on it. And I had, at the time, she was the executive the executive director, president at the United Way, said, "Well, that's because we're talking about it in person, Karen. We're having conversations." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll take that. I will take that over having, someone say something about us on social media, because it means that that discussion is going on. They're conversing, they're sharing their knowledge and opinions so that they can become better, more informed community members. And that's our goal. That is our goal, that the people that we serve have the information they need to make a good decision. And our hopefully we do it well. We're always working to do it better. And both the Oshkosh Herald is an award-winning newspaper, which it's like I can say that, which is very good, but that means it's been recognized by other newspapers that we're delivering a quality product. So our goal is to make sure we're delivering quality news, quality information, relevant information to our community so that they can stay healthy and informed.
That's a great ending point. I want to thank you so much for what you and your team are doing in the community. It's so very important, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching this show. I am somewhat opinionated, as some of you may know. I happen to think that real freedom of the press, real freedom of speech, real access to the ballot box that encourages every legal, eligible voter to vote, real access to the jury box so that the Constitution is honored by the right of a jury to decide innocence or guilt, real presumption of innocence, and most importantly of all, freedom to speak and compete in the arena of ideas is what has made this country great. And I also think I have never seen a time when all of them were under more vicious attack than right now. So read your paper and think about it. I'm George Curtis, and that's my opinion.